Everybody coming to you on Saturday night. Full podcast coming Monday morning, full Giants talk. But I try not to bug Cole on Saturday nights unless it's like a true emergency. And 1 year deals usually don't fit into that. But Luis Arraez is a Giant. Wanted to give some thoughts on that here. Also have a column on our website right now, NBC Sports Bay Area, if you want to go read that, some additional thoughts and stats. But just three quick thoughts on Arraez, who is the new second baseman. He ends what has been an entire offseason of searching for second base upgrades. I really thought Brendan Donovan was going to be the guy. They have been after him hard all offseason. Multiple times, I think they thought they had a good offer out there and just have been frustrated with not just, I think, there, but other organizations as well. Just kind of the nature of trade talks. And obviously, they've been connected to Nico Horner. There were the CJ Abrams rumors and what the Giants were potentially willing to give up there. And just, I think they've been frustrated really all offseason with trade talks and ultimately never got there. So they circled back to Luis Arraez, a three-time batting champ. A very polarizing player, I think, in today's game, especially if you go on social media, just go and look at some of the fan reaction to this. But he's the guy. He ends up being the guy. No trade for a second baseman for the Giants, and obviously he is going to be their second baseman. You look at the makeup of this roster right now, and barring a real surprise over the next 9, 10 days here, he's here to play second base. And I think you did see some of the smoke the last couple of days with him that he has made it clear through his agents and other people as well that he wants to go back to playing second base. I'll touch on that in a second. Three thoughts here. First, I think this is going to be there will never be another Belt Wars. This will be, I think, a mini Belt Wars. He's a really, like I mentioned, the highs are high and the lows are low. You look at his baseball savant page, there's like in a span of eight categories there's three 100s and three ones. So he's like on the opposite ends of the spectrum when you look at things. Just does not hit the ball hard at all. First percentile there. Doesn't barrel the ball up. Doesn't hit for a lot of power. Doesn't draw walks. Doesn't run. Uh, but he is as good as it gets in today's game in terms of contact skills. And he's a three-time batting champ, three-time All-Star. It's kind of a down year for him last year, viewed as a down year in San Diego. He still hit 292. He struck out 21 times in 620 at bats. Per the great Sarah Langs, she looked this one up, the lowest strikeout rate since Tony Gwynn in 1995. He does one thing, he does it really, really, really well. He does it better than almost anybody who's played in the last couple decades. And at times, like, 30, 40 years ago, he'd probably be on a Hall of Fame path because he gets hits. He led the league in hits last year. But you look at what we look at now, and there's a lot of other things that obviously stand out. WRC plus last year put him basically at league average, basically where Casey Schmitt was. Now, Giants second baseman overall were much lower than that because there were other guys who mixed in there. But that's one way of measuring this. That's a good way of measuring this. But I do go back a couple years. He's only 28 years old. It's a 1 year, $12 million deal. And you go back to 2022, 2023. The WRC plus in 2022 was 130. In 2023, it was 131. So at times he has been very, very good offensively, even though the profile is kind of one-dimensional. And at times that's been so good that it has enabled him to be one of the better offensive second basemen in baseball. The Giants obviously hoping for that. If he meets in the middle somewhere between like 131 in 2023 and he was 109 in 24 and 104 last year, if he meets in the middle on a 1 year deal, that's a steal. If he replicates last year, it's you're about getting what you paid for. He was point 0.9 F4 last year. So for 12 million, that's about what you will get on the open market these days. So contract wise, not a big deal. But yeah, he's going to be, I think, very, very polarizing. I would imagine this is going to be age dependent in a way, and in the way you view the game. People who don't like strikeouts, people who've been tired of all the strikeouts the last few years, are going to love this guy. He doesn't strike out. He puts the ball in play. People who want a little bit more all around, people who look at the advanced stuff are down on this, and you can see the reaction on social media right now. So it's going to be interesting. I think a mini version of kind of our belt wars here. You know, how do you view Luis Arraez? He's one of those guys who shows up on those graphics all the time, where people online are just arguing about how good a player he is. The Giants view him as someone who's a pretty good fit. That brings me to the second thing here, which is the second part of this in him being polarizing. The bad here, negative 20 outs above average at second base the last 3 years, only 10 starts at second base last season. He looked like he was a first baseman DH, maybe headed down the path of being a pinch hitter type. But he wants to play second base. That's something he wants to do. The Giants are going to let him do it. Defensively, there are some concerns here, some real concerns. Now you can get better. You can work with Ron Washington and Ron Wotus, and maybe there's improvements to be made. I saw some videos tonight of him working a lot at second base over the offseason, but he's not going to be a good defender, and it's going to be a downgrade defensively for the Giants. And it's something they're willing right now to swallow. I do think there are ways to mitigate that. You can have some Casey Schmitt, some Christian Koss late in games. That can help quite a bit. I do think the right side in general is maybe overblown. I saw a lot of people saying this is going to be the worst right side defense in baseball. It could be. I thought Devers actually looked okay for a guy who picked up the position basically on the fly and did it while he was hurt last year. I thought he showed signs. The Giants are very optimistic. Buster in particular thinks he has like Gold Glove caliber potential once he gets comfortable at first base. So we'll see how he is at first, but at second base, it certainly is a step back defensively. And that's interesting, right? I mean, this is a Giants team that in theory you want to build around pitching and defense at Oracle Park. They go out and get Harrison Bader, really improve the outfield defense, and then take a step back on the infield at a time when you have guys like Logan Webb who are ground ball guys and depend on that. So not necessarily building around pitching and defense. That brings me to the second thing here, though. They are building around the infield. Buster Posey won with pitching and defense. He also won with good infielders. He spent most of his career as part of a very good group on the dirt. Played with Brandon Crawford, played with Brandon Belt, Joe Panic, Matt Duffy had that year where there's a whole homegrown infield. Um, Late in his career, Evan Longoria. So he's played with very good infielders and he has built around the infield. He was instrumental before he took over in helping the Matt Chapman extension get done. His first big move is Willy Adames. His next big move is Rafi Devers. Now, part of this offseason, he goes out and gets Arraez. And really, I've thought it's interesting the whole time. We've talked about it on the podcast all offseason. I thought Casey was fine. I would have been totally fine with him at second base. But the Giants have been after a second base upgrade all offseason and just an entirely new look on the infield. And it has the potential to be a very, very good offensive infield. Arraez should be better offensively than the Giants second basemen were last year. Even if he's who he was last season, just the overall package should be better. We know what Willie did last year. It's a full season of Devers. Chapman is back and healthy. Bryce Eldridge is in that mix at first base and DH. He's going to play a lot of first base as well. So, yeah, it should be a very good infield. And then you look at Casey Schmitt now, a super utility guy. The Giants have wanted him to be in that role. He can play second. He can play short. He can play third. He played some first base last year. Maybe he becomes that right-handed guy. I don't think they're going to need it a whole lot because Devers can play every day, but it does just give him another option. And I do think he's going to play a lot late in games, and it does allow them to rest these guys a little bit, assuming he doesn't become a trade chip over the next 9, 10 days here. It's always possible. It bumps Christian Koss down a slot. It bumps Tyler Fitzgerald down a slot. So the infield in general is stronger, and it really is interesting right now. The strength of this team is the infield. The weakness is the bullpen. Not quite what maybe anyone would have expected a year and a half ago, but that's where the Giants are right now. I think it's interesting way to build, but that's what they're going to try to do. And in a lot of ways, when they were good last year, or I should say when they were briefly interesting in the second half and made that little run, a lot of it was led by this infield, and a lot of it was led by the offense. So it seems like they're going to try to replicate some of that next year. My third thought here is that this should not be surprising at all. Because if you look at their trades, if you look at their draft picks, you look at the 2025 draft class, what they did not just in the first round, but the rest of that draft as well with the position players. You look at Jesus Rodriguez, Drew Gilbert. They have very, they've been very targeted in getting guys who are more bat control types. They're trying to add more balance to their lineup. They're trying to strike out less. You look at them hiring a hitting coach from Toronto. Blue Jays led the league in batting average. They were second to last in strikeouts. So this has been very clear. Buster has talked about it. He has talked about it on my podcast multiple times. I've asked him about it going back to the last trade deadline. And he's very clear about the way he wants to build this lineup and wants them to strike out less, put the ball in play more. I think especially with runners in scoring position, keep the line moving a little bit more. So yeah, this ultimately should not be that surprising because this is somebody who fits that mold. He really fits it better than anybody. This is ultimately down the line what they want in some of these guys who they've drafted and some of these guys who they traded for. They want these guys to be part of this mix. Now you're always going to have guys who strike out a lot. Harrison Bader strikes out a fair amount, but I think this front office, and I would imagine mostly Buster, they've gotten a little bit tired of just seeing all the strikeouts pile up and all those games where we're sitting there at the end of it going, this is like the third time in a row Giants have struck out 12, 13 times. So trying to limit that a little bit, and Luis Arraez fits in. A lot more to get to. An interesting deal here. I do think Giants fans are going to like him. I just being on the other side, I'm fully aware of the limitations and fully aware of the overall profile and what his overall Savant page says and what WRC Plus says about him and everything, defensive metrics. But when the Giants would play the Padres, he was annoying. He was just an annoying person to face. I think if you put him in the right spot in the lineup, you look at the success that the Padres had against Logan Webb the last couple of years. Rise was a big part of that in those games. So he can be a very pesky hitter in that lineup. And I think most Giants fans are going to like that. There are going to be a lot of people who look at the overall numbers and some of the other stuff and don't love it. And the defense certainly at times is going to be something I think that gets talked about quite a bit if it has not improved. But just in general, it lengthens the lineup a little bit. It makes them a little bit tougher to play, a little bit tougher to pitch to. Uh, and that's a good thing. Now we'll see what they do over the next, it's January 31st. They have a little bit over a week here before they report to camp, and we're all down there watching them. And we'll see what they do. Pretty clear now. Lineup is set. Their bench is really mostly set. I mean, they have their backup catcher options for the most part. Assuming there's not a trade here, you have Eldridge, you have Schmidt, you have Koss, you have these guys in their spots. Encarnacion is out of options. Drew Gilbert, Luis Matos is out of options. So you have your guys in the outfield mix. They really have their lineup set for the most part. Spring training, as of now, becomes mostly about the bullpen, an area where they haven't really upgraded and an area where they could use some help. But that's a conversation for February. Here on the last day of January, Luis Arraez, San Francisco Giant.